Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I thought that I would just show you a quick little, just the way that I bind journals. So I'm making these little envelope journals here, and this is one that I've already bound. I'm just using a simple pamphlet stitch to bind it. So I'll just show you on the next journal how I actually go about doing the binding when I'm doing a journal. And I use this for pretty much any journal that I'm making. Just show you here. This is a big journal that I made, and for each signature in this big journal I did the same pamphlet stitch. And so then on the outside it looks like, in this one I put beads and things, but I'm doing a very simple version for these little envelope journals. So this is my journal that I've got already, and I planned out my signatures, and so I've got them here. So the first thing I do is I've made myself a template, and what I did is I made it the same size as what my signatures are, and then I marked the middle of it and 1 inch from the top and 1 inch from the bottom, and I'm using that as my template. So I put that inside the journal. Now I've already actually poked the holes in this one, but I'll show you. I put that inside the journal, and then I've got this little tool here. It's actually a bead reamer, but I find it works really well for poking the holes. And I'll put links to this stuff in the description, or in the description. So I just stick it where the hole is supposed to be, and then I just push it through. And you see then that makes my hole in the journal. And then I pull it out and I make sure that things don't shift, and then I do the same thing up here, the next one. So once I have all 3 holes poked into my signatures, then I take the same template and I take my journal cover. And now with the journal cover, what I have to do, because this is the size of my signature, I'll set it to, I have to kind of shift it to the middle. I don't want to just have it at the bottom, because then my pages will be closer to the bottom than the top. So I try and set it right in the middle of my stitching there. And then I do the same thing. I'll go to the center and I'll poke my hole through. And then I go to the top, poke the hole through, and to the bottom and poke the hole through. So once I've got my holes all set up, then I can get rid of my template. And I take my signatures, and you want to make sure that you've got, this is my top. So I want to make sure that I've got the top in, and I want to make sure that I've got everything lined up the way I want it. And then I'm going to take those signatures and just set them kind of in my journal. Now, what I use for this is I use embroidery thread or embroidery cotton, and I have these little balls of it that are quite nice. So it's just regular embroidery cotton, and I have a darning needle, and you can get them in different sizes. I chose one that would easily fit through these holes. I have bigger ones and smaller ones. You can get them at any store. I'll put a link in the description too. And I have one of these little needle threaders. I just find it's way easier. So I put the needle threader, yeah, way easier. I put the needle threader through the needle, and I stick my yarn through, and then I just very carefully pull the needle threader so that the yarn goes through the needle. Simple, super easy. Now when I'm doing this, I don't usually cut off how much I want, because I want to make sure I have enough. So I just leave my ball sitting there. And now I'll go to my center. And for the pamphlet stitch, you want to start on the inside and go through your center. So what I usually do is I'll go through the signatures. I'll just pull a bunch through. And then I'll leave myself some room, and I'll go through. I've got to make sure I don't catch my closure. I'll go through the journal. So you go through the middle. Then I'm going to do the same thing going through the top. So I go through my top hole into the cover, pull that through, And then I want to do the same thing with my signatures. Now, sometimes you have to kind of fiddle around with them. I find with these smaller ones, they'll usually go through to my middle without too much trouble. But see there, I missed the middle. I'm through here. So I'm going to, yeah, if I kind of open it in the middle, then it'll usually go through. So that's my top one. And then I go back out through the bottom hole. Again, this is just a simple pamphlet stitch, but it's my favorite one for binding. So I'll go through there and then back through here. Again, making sure I don't catch my closure. And then once I'm through there, then I have to come back through the center. So this is the part that gets a little bit harder, but it's not too bad. So I want to go through my center there. And then I want to go through the center of the signatures. This can take a little bit of finagling. Sometimes if I'm having trouble, I'll get it part way through. Through to this one. So then I'll just open it to that spot and then I'll put it through the next bit. I might have gotten it. Aha, I did. Now you want to make sure that you don't catch the other strings there. Okay. So now, got lots of strings hanging around here. Make sure that that comes through smoothly. There. Okay. So what I want to do then is I'm going to get rid of my needle, and I'm just going to, because I don't like to waste a lot of my thread, I'm just going to tighten this up a little bit. So this, I'm just going to pull this a little bit to reduce the amount of thread that I have hanging out there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Again, these kind of get a little bit tangled sometimes, but you just want to be careful when you pull it that you're not ripping anything, but just very carefully pull that thread. Okay, so that's about the length I want, so I'm going to just cut this off, get that out of the way. So then what I want to do is I want to make sure, I go back here and I open it up, I make sure that this is nice and even looking. I make sure that when I open it up here that there's no gap here, because I want this to be nice and tight. And so then I'll kind of tighten these. Now on the inside, what I want to make sure I have, and I actually have it here, so I'm going to just mess it up so that I can show you how I would fix it. So if both strings are on the same side, I want to take it and pull one string onto this side. So there, now I have one string on each side of my main string. And I want to just kind of make sure everything's nice and tight, but don't pull too hard because you don't want to rip anything. And then I'm going to just tie a knot. So there's one, and then I tie another one, just to make sure that that's going to stay. Now, I personally like to have a little bow in the center, just because, especially in these little junk journals, I find that that's cute to have the little bow in the center. So I'll just make the bow the size that I want. And then I usually just snip off the extra ends of thread. There. And then you can go back and check and make sure that everything opens the way you want it to. You see? And my centerpiece right there with my pocket. And now I have a little bound journal. So that's just a simple pamphlet stitch. like I say, that's the most common one that I like to use on all my journals, because I find that it's strong, but it's also quite simple, and you can bind, you know, multiple signatures into a journal that way. When I'm doing a journal like this other one that's so big and has multiple signatures, like I've got, what do I got, 5 signatures in here. What you have to do is you have to make sure that you mark on your spine here evenly across the spine where you want each signature to go. So I measured my spine, and then I marked in each signature evenly spaced. I made a template for that too. Usually I like to do templates because then it's simpler. And when I did this one, because I was going to put the fancy beads on it, I came out through my center, and then before I went in on this side, I put my beads on. Then I went in, then I came back out this side, put my beads on, and then went back in the center. And that's how I was able to get all these cute little beads on here for that one. But this is a lot more complex, just because it's multiple signatures, but it's the same basic method. So I hope that helped you, and I hope you let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you again.